You know, if I turned into a red panda every time I got excited, I think my room would explode with every trailer reaction. Yeah. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today I'm so excited to dive into Disney Pixar's Turning Red, which hits Disney Plus exclusively on March 11th. Do I think it should have been in theaters? I think it should have been given a fair run, of course, but I digress. Thanks so much to Disney Plus for giving me the chance to review this early for the channel. It's directed by Domee Shi, who actually directed Bao, one of my favorite Pixar shorts, and it's starring Rosalie Chiang as Meilin, Sandra Oh as Ming, her mother, and even Jordan Fisher as Robaire, the four-town boy band extraordinaire. Now, this is Pixar's 25th feature film, and it does break some new ground in terms of representation, but we'll dive into that as we get into the review. Now, before we get into what the movie's all about and whether I liked it or didn't, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies and TV. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the big thumbs up button if you are a fan of Pixar. And hey, get loud in the comments and let me know what you thought of this movie when you see it. Did you love it? Did you not like it so much? Or are you kind of in the middle? Because I have some thoughts about this one. Okay, so let's dive into what Turning Red is all about, and it really is a story that centers around a 13-year-old girl in the 8th grade named Meilin, who turns into a giant red panda whenever she gets too excited. But it's not even the red panda angle that really got me into the story. If anything, it was more so about the coming-of-age story with Meilin in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. So I loved this entire vibe. I thought it was cute, quirky, and you know what? We might as well get into the very first positive, because yes, this is probably the most adorable Pixar movie that I've ever seen. And so many elements about this movie really just reinforces why I think it's so cute, starting with the animation style, which is just incredible at times. It mixes what we've come to know from most Pixar movies with an anime approach. Guys, I'm not even lying. They even had the big, like, eyes and like the little, like the googly eyes whenever they were looking at Four Town, and it was just so cute. And there were even moments where it went from 3D to 2D, and there was kind of a quick moment there, I think, towards the middle, but it looked great. And they even were teasing big battles with giant red pandas, and I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be like a kaiju reference or something? But it was just awesome. The entire movie really is bubbly, and Meilin's story is awesome. It even made me feel nostalgic at times. Not saying that I am nostalgic for middle school, but okay, maybe I was a little nostalgic for middle school while watching this movie. But like I said, there's a lot going for this movie, so let's start more specifically with the voice cast, beginning with Rosalie Chiang, who absolutely nails it. Her performance as Meilin was really well done. She was able to perfectly balance being both a 13-year-old 8th grader with turning into a red panda and trying to discover her family's past. It was really interesting to see exactly how she was able to take all of that and also deliver a dynamic performance. There's a lot to be said about her personality, which is both energetic and shy, which kind of complements those around her. But it's not just Rosalie Chiang who actually delivers a good performance here. Her mother is played by Sandra Oh. So Sandra Oh plays Ming, and she's able to be very overprotective, of course, but also a little passionate about making sure that her daughter grows up with as much love as she can give her. And I actually really love that, because we've all had overprotective parents before in the past, haven't we? I have. And there are moments where she's absolutely unhinged but vulnerable, so Sandra Oh just is adding another star to her resume. She's a legend, but this performance is just so darn good because of Sandra Oh. But it's not all about the main cast here. The supporting cast was really, really good, and there are many notables here, but I want to start with Meilin's girl gang. You have Abby, Priya, and Miriam, who are just awesome yet completely different alongside May. You remember when I mentioned that Meilin has this like personality that complements her friends? Well, her friends also complement her, because even though they are opposites in some degrees, well, they really just help each other grow. Starting with Abby, who's played by Hyein Park, she made me laugh out loud. This character is very angry at times, but she's ride or die for May. And then you have Priya, who's played by Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. She's more of an introvert, but she's also very understanding. And lastly, you have Miriam, who's played by Ava Morse, who is really the best friend for May, and is someone who is always trying to be that voice of reason and ground her crew of friends. But man, it is just so cool to see how supportive they are of one another, especially in trying to get tickets to see Four Town, which is like a subplot here. They're trying to raise money, and how do they do so? Well, you can probably imagine. Well, I'm not going to spoil that for you, but speaking of Four Town, all of these girls have one thing in common. They love this boy band, led by Robaire, who is voiced again by Jordan Fisher. Now, I really like Jordan Fisher, and I absolutely loved him in this role, and I think Robaire is a cool character, but there's just not enough screen time for Jordan Fisher and the rest of Four Town in this movie, so that's a little disappointing, but I do really like Robaire here, and Jordan Fisher is just able to really nail it. He's so darn charismatic, and honestly, the dude just gets it. He knows how to deliver a live action performance, and he knows how to do voice work. Okay, we're almost done with the supporting cast, but I do want to rave a little bit about Mei's grandmother here, who's voiced by Wei Ching-ho. She is excellent. I mean, I smiled every time that character was on screen, and this voice work was just unreal. I loved what they were able to do with her family as well, where there were like the aunties and the grandmothers, and it was so cool to see all of that kind of blend into the second half of the movie. But speaking of Meilin's family, there's one performance here that I don't think is going to get spoken of a lot, but does deserve some love, and that's Orion Lee, who plays Jin Lee, who's Mei's father, and he has some really cute moments here. There's a cooking scene that was incredibly well done, and there's this heart-to-heart with Mei herself, which I even felt was way too short. I wanted more from that, because honestly, those are the moments that I was able to resonate even more so with. Okay, let's actually move on now to the story elements themselves, because I think that this movie is really going to appeal well to women, both young and older, and even mothers of girls. Now, not all of the story beats here were story beats I could relate to, and that's not a negative. That is okay. I know there were some other people saying that, well, this movie's not relatable, so I'm gonna throw it to the side. Honestly, don't do that, because this movie really is something that not all men are gonna understand, but I know that there are young women out there and even mothers out there that are going to understand Turning Red on a different level. I've spoken to some friends actually who have absolutely related to this movie, so I know that it's going to work. It's going to provide a lot of laughs and smiles, but I also think it's going to hit some people in the heart. So while I know the emotion works on that level, I kind of wanted to touch on the actual transformation into the animal aspect, because like we've seen in the past with Disney Pixar movies, especially with Soul as of late, the minority characters in these movies, whenever there's a movie with a minority lead, they always turn into animals, and they were in that animal form for too long, so that's why I was really worried about Turning Red. But Meilin Lee is not a red panda for long, and I'm actually happy about that. It seems like they've learned from their past, or maybe they've just switched up their approach, because Mei only turns into a panda when I thought it made sense. And when she's a human, it absolutely makes even more sense. So this movie handles that area a lot better than some of the more recent Disney Pixar movies. And the last positive, guys, is the score and soundtrack, because this is a big emphasis in Turning Red. Ludwig Göransson is the composer here for the score itself, and he does an excellent job. He's one of my favorite composers working today, and if you know him, you know him, but he just understands the source material so well while adding in a sprinkle of his own style. So it's distinct enough to know that it's a Ludwig Göransson score, but it's also ingrained in the movie in a way where you are escaping into this world. So he does an excellent job at really just adding a little bit more flavor to the film. They even used the Destiny's Child song at one point, so way to speak to my heart. But the one song that is incredibly catchy here, it's an original song that was written by Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas. They actually wrote Nobody Like You, which is the Four Town hit single. So it works. At first I was kind of like, this is not hitting for me. But as the movie went on, okay, I was singing along. Alrighty, you guys, so now that we've went ahead and praised this movie for all it did well, let's talk about some negatives here that didn't work for me, and I do feel like it starts with the story itself. It's at its weakest in the second half of the movie, most notably in the third act. When we start to learn more about the Red Panda and the transformation, unfortunately, it just kind of hits a wall. There are moments where in my head I'm understanding why they went in this direction to build upon Mei's coming of age story, but I can't tell you that I feel like it was executed well. There's a lot stuffed into that last half an hour of the movie where it tries to advance the story forward, but for all the spectacle that we had when they get to the Four Town concert, it doesn't really help this movie end on a positive note for me. If anything, I was a little detached from the film compared to the first half. And for all of that build up to the concert itself, you guys, I did feel that entire sequence was a little bit lackluster. It didn't really have an impact on me compared to the first act of the movie. Honestly, you guys, Turning Red does remind me of Encanto in a certain way when it comes to the story itself, because in the second half of Encanto, I felt like the story got notably weaker, and that's sort of a similar trend here for Turning Red. But even in in the second act, right in the middle of this movie, the film begins to kind of coast. After finding its footing in the first act, I felt like the second act was sort of just going through the motions. And I do think that's because this movie caters primarily to younger women and mothers of girls, but I'm not going to go ahead and say that's a negative. However, I will say, outside of the core demographic, I just didn't really feel the same way as I did once we get to a certain ritual moment in the middle of the movie. I was riding with this film, but again, when we get to that middle point of the film, I'm like, okay, there are certain elements here that just aren't working well. And the last ding against this movie really is that I wish Turning Red stuck with a coming-of-age tale for Mei versus leading heavily into the mythos of the Red Panda. I love the mythology here, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't feel like it was properly inserted into the story. It just kind of feels like the formula here that worked was the coming of age stuff, but what didn't work was all of the Red Panda transformation stuff. It's just not strong enough to sustain the film for about an hour or so, but when we get more of that and less of Mei learning about the world around her, it did take me out of the movie ever so slightly enough for me to notice. But does that make Turning Red a bad movie? Absolutely not, guys, because overall I do think Turning Red is adorable. It is one of the cutest, if not the cutest, Disney Pixar movies I've seen in a long time, but Turning Red is kind of lackluster, especially in the second half. A lot of the ideas don't necessarily blend well compared to the first act, and I really wanted more of a coming of age tale and less of that transformation stuff, but I get it. They have to cater to a younger audience, and hey, that's what you have to come to expect when you get into a Disney Pixar movie these days. But Turning Red really is a fun time. It really is historic. It's the first Pixar film to be directed solely by a woman, the first to take place in Canada, and the second to feature an Asian lead character after the movie Up. So again, Turning Red is adorable, and there were so many moments that I kept saying, oh, that is so cute. But that's the thing. This movie is going to really elicit a reaction from you. It's going to cause you to feel something by the end. And honestly, I do wish this got a theatrical run because I think it would have looked even more beautiful on the big screen. So if I even had to rate this movie, guys, it is like a 4 out of 5. There were some elements that I felt like could have been more well-rounded to get this movie over the hump from good to great. But I do recommend checking it out when it does hit Disney Plus again on March 11th. And when you do, go ahead and get loud down below in the comments and let me know exactly what you think of this movie. And if you haven't already, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, y'all, because we got more content coming. I'm reviewing the Adam Project this week, which I'm really excited for, and hopefully some more surprises. I'm hearing maybe some trailers this week. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And I didn't turn into a panda. I didn't get too excited. Oh, great. Oh, no.